Pakinapakan, pakinapakan, pakinapakan tipikong. Pakinapakan, pakinapakan, pakinapakan tipikong. Gyamopakan, gyamopakan, gyamopakan tipikong. Gyamopakan, gyamopakan, gyamopakan tipikong.
Bonjour, totemenanak sungwa wagini digenikas, benasi dutem, kanishkutiak dunje. I was born in Treaty 1 territory here and grew up on the Long Plain First Nation. That upbringing was special because I was able to learn a lot about our customs and traditions through my grandparents. For Anishinaabe people, Dakota people in Long Plain, we have a very, very long history as Indigenous people right across the country with the residential school policies and the creation of legislation and policies that really had a negative impact on the way of life of Indigenous people.
I was only 7 years old when I was placed in Brandon residential school, and then went to Sandy Bay, then went over to Birtle. So I've been to 3 residential schools. I have also experienced a lot of abuse, physical abuse, to all types of the abuses that they had.
Historically, many of our people have stated, or ancestors or knowledge keepers, that we had a very rich spiritual teachings from our people, because of government and church policies were prohibited and forbidden to practice our traditional ways. Because of the influence of the churches in our ways, our people were confused for many years. Our youth were confused for many years because of suppression of our ways, our spiritual ways. They put us to assimilate us, to brainwash us, to think that our ways were evil, witchcraft.
We used to live off the land. So settlers came and tried to do genocide on our culture, and they failed. We're still here, and we're still practicing our traditional ways.
When we were under attack from the colonial governments, and to some degree, I actually think that's still in play, but it's more subtle, but it's there. Residential schools, because of the intergenerational impacts, you would have witnessed a lot of families that were dysfunctional.
I am born in Casablanca, Morocco. We were colonized from Europe, 3 countries. The French took the middle, the big piece. The north was taken by Spain, and the south also taken by Spain, and couple town in the border of the ocean was taken by Portuguese.
In Nigeria, we have over 250 ethnic groups and over 500 languages. Slave trade started, transatlantic slave trade, the colonial rule. All of these oppressions, really affected our culture.
I grew up in a small town called Kilcullen in County Kildare, which would be considered rural Ireland. The culture of the Irish has been developed due to a variety of factors. So we talk about invasions, we talk about political oppressions, the famine, economic hardship.
When we were taken to I was 3 when I was taken to a foster home, 3.5, 4, somewhere around there. And I ran around, could speak my language. I come out, I couldn't speak it anymore. I remember a report card when I was in grade 1, because my birthday's in November, so I hit grade 1 at 5 years old, because And on my report card, it said I didn't understand English very well. Language is such an important thing to keep. It's just finding the time. And right now, it's hard to find classes for it and stuff. I mean, I did hear it all the time in British Columbia growing up, but I only heard one side of the conversation. I would know a lot more now if, when my mom phoned home, if I would hear what the other person was saying.
I understand a little bit of Cree, but I am Ojibwe, and I can probably count. I know a lot of animals, some colors, a little bit of sayings here and there. I'm trying.
When I born, everything system here was French. I learned French in the age of 3 because everyone speak French or broken French, half Arabic, you know. Now we recognize there are 2 languages, First Nation language, the Amazigh, and the Arabic.
You know, for me, being from Ireland, I would love to be able to speak my language. We did have an opportunity to learn my language since from an early age, but it's not something that was spoken at home.
Now, I'm a student of my culture. That was what I did for my first degree. I did study my language for my first degree and my culture. And a research was done on children who were taught with my Indigenous language and children who were taught with English language. In terms of mathematics, in terms of science. At the end of the day, when the research was done, when the outcome was concluded, it was discovered that children taught in Indigenous languages better understood the concepts and did much better than children that were taught in an English language. In terms of language, as I said, I'm a student of language. Now, the impact was very grave. In our schools, growing up, we were told that speaking our language is vernacular. It's a taboo. You speak your language, you're fined. You know, things eventually begin to get better, but back then, you even speak your language, you are beaten for it.
My ancestors, my grandparents, great-grandparents, at a time in our history when we were under attack, under this colonial imposition that we were living under, they, on the northern plains, the grassland societies were quite prevalent, and their job during a turbulent time in our history was to preserve languages, customs, traditions, songs, dances. Grass dance is when you think about grass dance, it's a style of dance. And if you go to a powwow today, and they would call the grass dancers to come and dance, it's a style of dance, one of the many styles of dancing. When they're under colonial imposition and the colonial governments were trying to strip away our identity and our way of life, our people were singing and dancing through the grass dance societies. So I really acknowledge and honor the grass dance societies that did everything they could to preserve, protect our way of life.
Our spirituality, our culture is based on respect for human beings, our peoples, other peoples, our land, Mother Nature. Our ways were much more holistic, to do with the mind, body, and soul. A lot of these ceremonies are based on nature, our respect for land, our attachment to land, the animals that we lived with and who looked after us by way of providing food and shelter and tools.
Smudging is a way of cleansing our mind and body, our spirit, so that we can keep going on through our day and praying for our children, our future. The way we heal is our body, mind, and spirit. So when we're praying to our ancestors, and when we're smudging, we're trying to cleanse ourselves and our environment. And with our body, we're trying to keep our body clean from anything negative, I guess you could say. Learning songs, keeping our traditions like dancing, ceremonies, we do sweats. Just trying to just keep going and not let anyone take our identity from us.
Things like smudging, I never saw before. Smudging, well, I heard about it, but didn't actually see people doing it. Smudging and praying before meals and stuff. I mean, sure, there was the odd time in the 10 years I was in Kamloops that people did pray, but blessing the food, ceremonies, feasts. So these are all new experiences. So it wasn't just interesting. It felt good to be a part of. So I do smudge, I do pray, especially when times can be difficult. I do ask for guidance sometimes from people I consider spiritual role models. What should I do here?
The First Nation, we call them Berber Amazigh. They respect the nature, they live in the mountain, they use the nature in their benefits, and they are peaceful. They are very self-sufficient and very modest.
We also have cases where water is poured on the ground. We have cases where gin is offered to the gods, to our ancestors, because we believe that our ancestors are the owners of the land. So we need to feed them first. So gin is poured, water is poured. These things are for the ancestors. And I know the Indigenous system has a system where they leave foods also for the ancestors.
When we talk about Irish people, people think of, folklore, and they think of things like, maybe leprechauns, and where does that really stem from? We talk about the look of the Irish, and the look of the Irish is really focused on things like old wives' tales or maybe superstitions, really derives from times of, the Celts, the Druids, old folklore, paganism. Like, there's so many varieties and variables that make up our culture, but that's what makes us who we are today, right? There's kind of a mixture of spirituality in Ireland. We talk about belief in things like old folklore mythology, like banshees and fairies, but that stuff is still very prevalent today.
The Yoruba belief system is hinged on the Ifa divination system. Our belief system is that where we believe in deities, and we have 7 major deities in the Yoruba system. Now, that's our belief system. We believe in nature also. That's why some of our deities are linked to the river, like Yemoja. She's the goddess of the river. She's the goddess of fertility. Shango is the god of thunder. Is the god of Ogun is the god of iron. So we have all these deities are also linked to elements of nature. Music in itself is spiritual. And in all of this music, a lot of messages are passed across. Music in our native languages, they are shared from generation down to generation. And then even with modernization, with new sound system, with new music genres, drumming is very important. We have a drum in our native land that we call talking drum. Now, our language is a language of tone. It has the low tone, the mid tone, and the high tone. So with this drum, I can talk to you. I can beat that drum, and you hear clearly what I'm saying. Now, this is not even myth or anything. You would clearly hear what I'm saying with the drum.
Medicines that we use have healing properties, whether it's berries or sage or sweetgrass or cedar. Our medicines are based on from Mother Earth, our herbs, our berries, our trees.
Our cedar to smudge, sage. We always use that. Sweetgrass. We put out tobacco when we pray.
There's a variety of traditional medicines that are used. Definitely lots of herbs that can be found locally in the local area. So you have different things like rose hip that would be used, and that would kind of increase vitamin C. You would have different things like the nettles in Ireland, and that would be used to boost immunity. But when we talk about charms and we talk about cures and of ailments, each person who had this gift of being a healer had a different recipe, and they would use a lot of different traditional medicines from the land. One message about my culture is that the Irish, they're resilient and they're true believers. So they believe in making their own paths and their own faith.
Forget what you hear out there and forget what you see out there. Because there are some people struggling in life who you see, and we care for them and we love them too. But that is not an accurate representation of our people. Just the same way I see people in big cities and of those cultures, I don't assume the whole culture is like that. And there's not just one culture out there. There's every culture struggles. There's good people in every culture, and we also have amazing people, intelligent, educated, smart, resilient, giving, caring. Get to know the people yourself. Then you can see for yourself just exactly what we are and who we are.
That we're still here, we're still thriving, and we're gonna keep continuing to pass down our traditions as much as we can.
There's a renaissance, a revival, because of our youth reaching out to embrace our traditional ways, whether it's naming ceremonies, smudging. Well, worldwide, there are many Indigenous people. Worldwide, it doesn't matter if it's Russia or China or wherever they come from, there are Indigenous people. And a lot of our people have taken the challenge to maintain and revive our ceremonies, our lodges, our teachings.
I'm a bit of an optimist, and I know there's a lot of good families, strong families out there that are all working in tandem, walking together on a healing journey.
We grown up differently. You grown up differently. First Nation here in North America grown up differently. But in the end of the day, if we sit like this and we talk, we can find lots of similarity.